Welcome to the UK's first metal detection podcast. It's All Metal Mode UK with your host from across the pond, Mr. Michael Hare.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike Hare, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode Podcast UK edition. Welcome, men. This should be a really good, exciting show. I've really been waiting for this since Dave brought it up, and I've seen some of the articles and stuff. Wow, this has definitely been something I've been looking forward to. So, Mr. Dave, how you doing?
I'm not too bad, Michael. How's yourself?
Rough. I'm really rough. I'll be honest with you.
I liked your leg. The look of your leg. That's most delightful.
Beautiful. Now that picture's from yesterday. I was at the hospital Saturday doing that. That's still what it looks like.
And for the listeners?
Yeah. I believe. Not this past Thursday, the Thursday before, I was out metal detecting. I believe it was that day, it was the next day. I woke up, I had what I thought was a spider bite. Steph agreed, thought it was a spider bite, and it just seemed to get worse and worse, and I'm really stubborn. And I didn't want to go take care of it, and it turned into a staph infection. So Saturday, I hobbled my butt to the hospital. They had to cut it out, which I'm telling you was miserable. Dave, you think with today's technology, they could relieve some of that pain, but I'm telling you, the doctor looked at me and she said, "You're going to scream, you're going to cuss. It's okay. Just breathe." And I thought, I'm a man. Yeah, that's what I did, man. I screamed like a little schoolgirl is what I did. It hurt. They cut it open, and she squeezed on it and stuff, and I'm on antibiotics. Yesterday was my best day. I'm starting to get around a little bit, be able to stand on my feet for more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And yeah, good.
What spider was it? Obviously, you got bigger and more atrocious spiders than we have in the UK. Any idea what it was?
No clue. Poisonous, I would suspect, because it was nasty before it even turned into. So it's. But I'm doing better.
Good.
Mm-hmm. So tonight's guest is Mr. Mike Smith, and I'm sure many of you read and heard. Recently found the Celtic Charriot in the UK, and that is awesome. Dave, I'm sure you know, and we'll talk to him, but isn't that like the first one? Didn't I read?
It's the first to be discovered in Wales, I think, yeah. And it's Celtic, Michael, not Celtic. Celtic's a football team in Scotland. Okay, my bad.
Us dumb Americans. Celtic. Okay. Looks like it's a C, but it sounds like a K. Got it.
Right, yeah.
I got it. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
Not too bad.
Good. You nervous? Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good to have you on.
Yeah,
so, Mike, you're the recent finder of the Celtic Charriot in Pembrokeshire.
I am, yes.
As seen in the UK. Tell us a little about yourself to start off with.
I started metal detecting when I was 12. I had a metal detector for Christmas in 1977. I found my first cannonball in 1979, Civil War cannonball, and I've never looked back.
And in that time, what machines have you used?
I've used everything from the first machine I had was a C-scope. The next one I had was a White's Coin Master 2, one of the early ones. Since then, I've had everything from the Garrett Ace range all the way through to the AT Pro. I've had the Fisher, the F44, the F19, the F75 SE LTD. I've currently got an E-Track.
Awesome. Hey, if you guys don't mind, we do not have C-Scope here. And everybody mentions C-Scope on the show. Can you tell me a little bit about the C-Scopes? I'm just out of my curiosity.
Well, today I don't really know that much about them.
Okay.
The one I had in 1977, it was just 2 buttons. You had threshold and you had on and volume. And basically it was a monotone machine. You just dug every signal sounded the same. But in my first 2 years with that machine, I grew up opposite an abandoned military barracks. And in that first 2 years, I had 172 different military badges, regiments from all over the world, as well as, to my parents' dismay sort of thing, I'd have Mills bombs, which is the British name for the grenade, mortars, plate mines, bullets, you name it, I probably dug it up.
That's fantastic. Do you know, there's a picture in existence which I'm trying to find at the moment, Mike, circa 1977 of me and my dad in Frodsham, which is in Cheshire, using an old C-Scope.
Oh, wow.
It eludes me exactly which one because I did an article put up on the website, on the Archaeology and Metal Detecting Magazine website, but unfortunately it all went down and I'm still looking for the article itself. But what I'll do with that for people interested in my sexy styling, I will I'll place that on the All Metal Mode UK podcast page on Facebook.
Hey, make a note. I would like to have somebody that's familiar with the C-Scope sometime on, if that's at all possible.
Well, we have got good communication with the C-Scope organisation, so we were actually in discussions with them for a while at Detectable back in September, so I'm sure the representative from C-Scope will come on if myself or Luke can make that happen.
That'd be great. Mike, so you listed quite a few detectors. Give us some of your favorites out of those.
Well, if the original C-Scope I hadn't broke, I'd have kept that a lot longer. Unfortunately, the lugs around the coil broke on it, and at that time they were hardwired into the control box. And I mean, I was a youngster, so I couldn't resolder them then. But it basically just had the on volume and a threshold button, and it had like the easiest way to describe it is like a shepherd's crook shape handle on it.
Okay.
Brilliant machine, very deep. But unfortunately, you didn't know if you were digging tin foil or if you were digging bullets or coins. You just whatever it was.
You dug, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the F44. I think that's a brilliant little detector for that price. What did you think about it?
The only thing I didn't like about it was a concentric coil. I'm used to the double D coils. Very good depth with it. Brilliantly stable machine. Very little falsing. Accurate on the VDIs. Lightweight, waterproof. What more do you want?
Right. I agree. They're good.
Yeah.
Those I had an F22, and actually I sent it home with my stepson. After he visited this past summer, and he really likes it. But I think for that price range to have an iron audio is pretty brilliant here, at least for us here because we have so much iron. I know you guys do too. We've had that conversation. I got beat up a little bit. Sometimes you guys from England beat up on me a little bit on the show, especially Dave, not mentioning any names. But that's awesome. So so how long you been metal detecting?
41 years.
Wow, 41 years. Yeah, I'm 42.
Yeah.
You're younger than me. Shut up. I'm not having that.
I'm 42.
That's broke me heart. That has now.
Do you mean 42 years you've been detecting, or you're 42?
No, I'm 42. I turned 43 in January, if that helps, Dave.
Right.
I'm 45 in May. No, it doesn't help, Michael.
No,
I'm 53.
Well, this should help you, Dave. You know I've got a baby at 42. That's rough. I feel like I'm 45 plus. So that boy's got a lot of energy.
Oh,
A lot of energy.
44 at the minute. Oh, terrible. I'm gutted now, mate. Luke's younger than me as well. I'm the old man here now, aren't I?
No, you're younger than me. I'm 53.
I'll tell you something. I've been metal detecting about 23 years, somewhere in there. I think I've been saying that for 2 years now. I don't know. But I feel like I've learned a lot in this hobby. I know a lot of different detectors. I know a lot. But what keeps me so humble, and the second I think I know a lot, is the guys like you who have been doing it for double what I've been doing it for and stuff. So that certainly helps keep me humble and keeps me from getting a big head, because I'm sure you could teach us all a little something, without a doubt. Do you have a lot of permissions?
I do, yes. Where I live, it's a rural area. There's a lot of farms. One of my farmers, he actually owns 5 separate farms. Must be about 5,000-6,000 acres alone on his farm.
Wow.
Another farm, he owns 4. Got to be about 4,000-5,000 acres. But yeah, I've got more fields than I can actually do myself. So I take some friends with me.
That's incredible. Have you had
Obviously,
some of those?
I make sure I've got permission from the farmers first, because some of them don't like you taking people on their land.
Right. Now, have you had some of those for a long time, I'm guessing?
Yes, yeah. Since the early 80s.
Gosh.
Oh, wow.
And
So-
as the different machines that you've used, I take it you've used them on the same sites. And have you discovered more with different machines?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Without doubt, one of the deepest machines I'd say I've had. I had the Fisher F75 SE LTD, and I put a Mars Discovery coil on it. Now, the first day that I found the Celtic horse harness junction piece, which that's a piece that looks like a flower, that was only a few inches down. Now, the following day I went back with my Fisher F75 LTD. I had the mine lab on the day before, and I was pulling up these pieces then were 18 to 22 inches deep. The ground was wet, which obviously that amplifies your signal. But I don't think I'd have found that with many other machines.
That's impressive. Yeah, that is deep. So for some of these people, I've even heard from guys over in England who say, "Oh, that field's been pounded and stuff." None of them are hunted out, really, are they?
Yeah, they can be for one of two reasons, really. One, they've been done a lot, but two, if they're just pasturing, they're never ploughed.
Okay, yeah.
Nothing gets brought back up then. But if they are ploughed every couple of years or something, then it brings more stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, I just would think, I see some of these pictures of these vast fields, and once in a while I'll see somebody say, everything's out of there. I mean, I just find there's so many different detectors and, ground conditions and stuff. I think it's hard to say that any place is really ever just empty of all finds,
Yeah, I don't think that's possible.
Right. So give hope to some of us that haven't been doing it as long.
Yeah.
Tell us about some of your finds before this.
Well, I've had hammered coins, Civil War cannonball, loads of finds, but nothing in this sort of caliber, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
My early days as metal detecting was in an old military barracks, so most of that was military related. I remember one day I found what I thought was a poker, an old fire poker. It was triangle in shape. And I threw it in the mud flats down by the river by me. And it wasn't until I got home I realised it was a Civil War bayonet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, never found it again.
Now, when you say Civil War, I'm sure we'll get some of us Americans listening in. What war are you speaking of?
It's a proper one, not one of them ones over there. It's proper, the early one, the proper one.
Yes, yeah, sort of the 1800s.
Okay.
It's 1642 to 1651 was the English Civil War.
Yes, yeah.
As between the parliamentarians who were the Roundheads and the Royalists who were the Cavaliers, as they were known.
Yeah, you had Oliver Cromwell against the Royals, basically. Then.
Okay. I need to research up on that. That's come up a couple times.
I'll send you over a book. I've got the British History for Dummies here, so I'll send that over.
Oh, yeah, that'll work. I'm a dummy. I'll say it. I'm a dummy.
I'll be honest with you, Mike. It's actually it's called a range of book for dummies in the UK, which is basically simplified versions of history, of Freemasonry, which I've got the book of that. My wife's got the fertility one, and it basically gives you all the information that you need as a basis, and it does it well, and it does it in terms that anybody can understand, not somebody with a bachelor's degree or somebody who hasn't even been to school. It's a terrific selection of books.
Great. Yeah, that sounds interesting for sure. I'd like to read up on it. Did I lose you guys for a second? Sound like I lost somebody.
No, not me.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. Everything kind of went silent on my end for a second, but I guess we're okay.
That'll be the tumbleweeds, probably.
Dave, you got any questions?
Yeah, I've got lists and lists of them. So, before your find on this site, what would have been your personal favourite find, your best find?
Well, that's a very difficult question. I mean, every day that I go out, I find something that I like. A couple of months ago, I had a King Richard I, Richard the Lionheart. I had one of his pennies, absolutely lovely condition. I had a Civil War Oliver Cromwell penny. I had that not too far from here, and that was the war, the Civil War, 1649 to 1660. So it was only in existence for 11 years. So obviously they're very rare. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the best of condition, but lovely, to know that you've had something in your hand there that's been in the ground for 400 years. It makes it special.
Mm. Do you go on many organised rallies, or is it just your own permissions and friends' permissions and such like?
Just my own, believe it or not. I've never ever been on a rally. I'd like to go on a rally, but unfortunately for me, I live in as far West Wales as you can live in. I can look from where I am and I can see Ireland.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you actually?
Milford Haven, Pembrokeshire.
Oh yeah, I used to spend most of my time as a child at New Hedges at Saundersfoot.
Oh, by Tenby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time there myself.
Yeah, so you do live pretty far over there, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of the rallies are, 300 mile away from me.
Yeah, fair dues. Well, if we ever heard of anything in the South Wales area, I'll give Luke a shout and he'll let you know about that, obviously, and try and get you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Onto the Chariot then.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was one of your permissions.
Yes.
It's all the news and whatnot. Tell us about the permission and how it came to actually transpiring that you visited that site on that day.
Well, what happened was, if you remember in February here, we had 3 weeks of torrential rain at the end of January. So come the beginning of February, all my fields were waterlogged. And I mean, you couldn't walk on them without getting caked in mud. Mm-hmm. Now, the one field I had, which I didn't particularly like because it was an old ploughed field and you couldn't get your spade in the first inch of it. It was just like concrete. But it's the only field that I had to go in. So I was determined I was going to go out. This is a field I went in. And usually, like, it's not ploughed anymore. It's pasture now. There's sheep in there. Every time I go into the field, the sheep scatter. Well, this one day I climbed over the gate and the feet were around my legs. They wouldn't leave me alone. My first signal was that Celtic horse harness junction piece. 2,000 years old and only a few inches under the ground.
Wow.
The sheep, they just wouldn't leave me alone. I went a little bit further down, found a little bit more, then it started to rain. So I came home and I showed my find on Facebook, and Julian Hart from Treasure Hunting magazine, he told me exactly what it was. I wasn't 100% sure at the time because the oldest I'd had at that time was early medieval. Although I've had Roman, nothing Celtic. So, Julian couldn't believe it either. The following day, then I went back with my Fisher F75 SE with the Discovery coil on, and I found the other pieces. The rest is history, basically. Go on, sorry.
Tell us about your feeling then when you originally saw the first item in the mud. Did you then think it was something special, or did you just think, oh, it's just something else?
No, straight away I knew it was special. My only regrets was not actually photographing the pieces in the hole before I lifted them out. The problem I had was the ground was so hard. It was quite a narrow hole. It was only about a foot round, perhaps a little bit more. And it was 18 inches deep. And I was virtually having to get onto my stomach to reach down with my hand.
Oh, wow.
And I could see the piece. It looks a bit like a mask when you look at it. I'm sure you've seen the pictures there.
I'm looking at it now, yeah.
And it turns out that that's a brooch that was worn on the side of the Celtic chieftain's horse, or pony, I should say, that was attached to the chariot. And it's only the second one ever found anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Straight away looking at it, I didn't realise it was a brooch to begin with. I thought it was some sort of, well, it's difficult to say really, decorative horse harness piece, or but it's quite big. It's about 8 inches long.
Hey, Dave, real quick, do you mind posting link to that article you're on?
Yep, certainly. I'll do that right this moment so people can read that.
Okay.
This is from the BBC website, which I'm sure Mike will know all about. And all the images on there, I believe, are actually Mike's own images as well.
They are, yes.
The original Mike's images.
Yeah. The only mistake I will say the BBC has made, when Gareth Knowles spoke to me on the phone and he took down the information, he's mistakenly said the burial is 2,600 years old, 600 BC. Mm-hmm. The actual ramparts and the Celtic fort, that is 2,600 years old. The burial is 2,000 years old, sort of 25 to 75 AD.
Oh, wow.
That's fantastic. So what was your initial reaction, Mike, when you dug it out? Was it stakes of shock and awe, or excitement, or
it was both.
Amusement?
It was both. Without sounding selfish, about 3 months before that, I was regularly detecting with a detecting partner. But due to work commitments on his own part, we hadn't been metal detecting together for about 3 months. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to sound selfish sort of thing, but if I'd been with him that day, it would be both of us that would have found it.
Yeah.
It would have been nice, but, it's one of those things.
Hey, I've kind of along those lines, something that Luke always wants us to ask just about anybody we have on, and I've really grown to love the question, and I think this is really relevant right now. Have you ever been with somebody when they found something really special?
No, to be honest, no. Because 90% of the time I detect on my own anyway. I'm now taking a friend of mine metal detecting, a fella Andrew Rolfe. He lives in Neyland, Pembrokeshire. He comes metal detecting with me now. I take him on my sites. He has very few permission. So it's nice to have a little bit of company. But unfortunately, no, not in this neck of the woods. I've only ever had 4 Roman brooches in the 41 years. I've had 9 Roman coins. That's all I've had in this location. So to find something like this, I just couldn't believe it. I still can't.
And what was the signal like?
Believe it or not, on the F75, I thought I was digging lead. It was in the 40s. I'm convinced it was lead, and I was convinced it was big lead because it was such a good tone, and it was so deep. I didn't think it could be anything else. And then when I got down to it and I could see the green, and the day before I'd spoke to Julian Hart from Treasure Hunting magazine, and he knows his stuff, you know. So thanks to Julian, going back on the second day, I knew what I was looking at, and I just couldn't believe it.
I've got to give while we're talking about Julian, I've got to give Julian a mention. He's the editor of Treasure Hunting magazine in the UK, and to be quite honest, there's not many people with as much knowledge, as many people who are as nice as he is, and as many people I could sit and listen to talk to for hours and hours and hours, because he's just absolutely so knowledgeable about the subject. Complete kudos to Julian and everything he's done for metal detecting in the UK over the years as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. So, being a large target, it's something many detectors would have generally walked over. Did you think, oh, it's too big, I'll carry on, or it's the wrong signal, I'll carry on?
Well, no, believe it or not, the ground was so hard. It took me half an hour to get through the first 4 to 5 inches, I'd say. I just couldn't get my spade in the ground, so I was just chipping away at it, sort of thing, and turning out the stones, and then a little bit more and turning out the stones. It took me a good half hour. But the signal, I knew it wasn't rubbish. I thought it might be lead, but I knew there was no risk of it, you know, being a big piece of iron or trash. You know, it was one of those signals that you just had to dig it. And knowing what I'd found the day before, and that was only 4 inches down, and it was the same sort of signal, so I had to dig it. Funny enough, Julian himself and a few other people the day before turned around once they realised what it was that I'd found. Their words to me was, "You'll never top that, Mike. That's it.
Yeah.
You're never going to beat it." And I went back the following day and I sent Julian some more pictures. And when he saw him, he couldn't believe it either.
I've just actually had the Julian loving, haven't I?
Well, he's a nice bloke. He's very helpful.
He's brilliant.
Yeah. I would love to have him on sometime. We've got him. We've talked to him about that, haven't we?
Yeah, we spoke to him at Detectable. Well, I say we spoke to him. I kidnapped him, handed the phone over, and let you speak to him.
Right, I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah. Listening back to that program, it was one of the highlights of that day's walk around.
I'm not taking away from anybody else I talked to that day, but he was my favorite. He really was. Very, very interesting fellow.
It's some of the stories as well go back many years, and they're so interesting. Yeah,
for sure. Now, for and again a dumb American, so it was a burial ritual. What would have the person been buried with it, or?
Yeah, what happened is the Celts. They buried the chariot. They normally lay the wheels down. They put the chariot on top of that. The two ponies were pulling the chariot. They'd have been buried in front of it, and the person in the fetal position in the chariot. But in this case, it turns out that it's a chieftain, or you've heard yourselves of Boadicea. It could be a queen. We don't know yet.
Oh wow, that is crazy wild.
Yeah.
Do they? How much? I might be jumping around here. How much work's been done there, and how much more do we know?
Well, because of the ground conditions, in June when the British Museum were here, it was like concrete. It took them a whole week to get down 12 inches. You know the way that archaeologists did. They had a machine come in first of all and take off the first few inches, and then everything else was done, you know, scraping and with mattocks and so on. It took them a whole week to get down to it. You could see the first 4 inches of both the chariot wheels. And unfortunately, at that stage, the money was running out. So we were left in a position basically where we couldn't continue. But at the same time, with the ground conditions being so hard, it was probably for the best. Now in spring, when they go back, the ground hopefully will be a lot softer.
Okay. Do they suspect to find more? I mean, were these common at these kind of sites?
No, they weren't. They weren't common. It's the first. It's not only the first chariot found in Wales or West Britain. There's never been one found anywhere outside of the east side of Britain. So it's a first for Wales. It's also it's a king or a queen or a chieftain, if you know what I mean, which is a Celt king. There's also 2 other burials in the field, which there's no chariot in them. Plus, then you've got the ramparts from the fort and the tree line. So it's basically they've turned around and said it's a previously unknown Celtic settlement. And if anybody's heard of Castell Henllys, it's an Iron Age village near Cardigan, in Cardiganshire, or Ceredigion. And that's on an acre of land. The entire site is an acre of land. Now, this find of mine, the field is 16 acres, and it's in approximately a quarter of that field. So you're talking 4 acres there, so it's bigger than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Now, when the museum came down, I suspect they did use ground-penetrating radar.
Yes, they did, yeah.
Now, just for a quick explanation of what ground-penetrating radar actually is, because Mike was obviously confused by the British terminology earlier. It's a geophysical method that uses radar pulses to image the subsurface. Basically, it sends down electromagnetic radiation and it bounces back up and causes darker and lighter patches to appear on a computer imaging system, which shows you where potentially walls are, etc., etc. So they did use ground penetrating radar at the site. Did that give any indication as to the size or the task that may be involved in the future?
Well, yeah. What makes you laugh? When the person first did the ground penetrating radar, before they actually started, they turned around and they said to me, "Don't expect much, Mike. We're not expecting to find anything." They just thought it was a hoard, and that was it. Although my first email to them at the British Museum was, "Hi Adam, this is Mike Smith from Pembrokeshire Prospectors. I found a Celtic chieftain's chariot burial." That was my first email to them. And they basically laughed at me and said, no way. You know, in the wrong part of the country, wrong area. So when they came down in June and they said this to me, we're not expecting to find much. And then he did, Ken Young, I believe his name was, he did his first field with the GPR equipment, first run with it. And he came back and my hoard was smack bang in the middle of a 12-metre round structure. Now, they didn't know if it was a roundhouse or a ring ditch. They're now quite confident this is a ring ditch. And that's 12 metres in diameter.
Wow.
30 to 40 metres to the west of that is another burial. And that's 21 metres in circumference. And then further again, roughly the same distance to the west of that one, is another one of roughly the same sort of size.
So this is potentially a unknown Celtic settlement, possibly bigger than Castell Henllys.
Yes, well, it is an unknown Celtic settlement. It wasn't on the maps. They had no knowledge of it. When Dyfed Archaeology came down and Cadw, they had no idea it was there. So yeah, it's a completely unknown settlement.
So up to now, what items have been recovered from regarding the chariot itself?
Well, initially I found, I believe, 9 items. And then the week they spent in June, I'm on about fragments and so on, nothing intact at this time. Another 30, 35, 36 items. So in total 46 to 47 items. That's including mine. But now that's not including the chariot, and the wheels. This chariot was intact when it was put in the ground. They never dismantled it. The wheels are upright. The body would have been inside the chariot. Unfortunately, because of the ground conditions, they don't think there'll be much of the body left. There may be teeth and there may be larger bones. hopefully at the depth, it will have created its own sort of atmosphere, and there will be a lot more preserved than there was closer to the surface. But until we get there, we don't know. But underneath the chariot is another 3-meter mass metal anomaly. They don't know what it is yet.
Oh.
So what is the plan of with the archaeologists?
In spring, they're coming back, and it could take 2 to 3 months to get it out of the ground.
And are they going to include you as part of the evaluation?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'll be there for the full duration of it, every day. I won't be leaving aside. I'll have my camera at hand.
Adam Weedle from South Coast Detecting has asked, have you now lost the field as a general detector and spotter? Will you be allowed back on to detect?
I can go in the field myself, but I actually recommended, I asked the British Museum, would they contaminate the field?
Yeah.
Because of, what it's like with nighthawkers and all that sort of thing. What they've done, the field is now scheduled, but they've sprinkled, well, not sprinkle, it's the wrong term. They've gone around the field basically with thousands and thousands of stainless steel washers.
Yeah, good.
And they've all been put into the ground. Plus, you've got that added security now of the actual fact that it is scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you mean by it's scheduled?
It's protected by law now.
Okay.
Nobody is actually allowed to go in there metal detecting. The farmer is only allowed to do a shallow plough, but not in the corner of the field where the find is. He's not allowed to touch that yet. Once the plough, once the chariot has been removed and the museum are happy there's nothing else there underneath the chariot as well, that schedule will then be lifted.
Just for your information again, Mike, obviously being in the UK, a scheduled monument is a nationally important archaeological site or historic building given protection against unauthorised change. So nothing can be done there without the archaeologists being on site.
So now
they'll also have to have multiple things in place with different officialdoms to be able to do that as well.
And if you got caught, it would probably be prison time instead of, if it was unprotected, you'd probably get slapped with a trespassing fine, I take it?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, you yourself first, Mike.
What you've got to understand is, as we all know here in Britain, there are a lot of what we call nighthawkers, people who metal detect on land without permission from the landowner. There's also people who metal detect on monuments, hoping that they won't get caught. Now, you imagine if I'd found this and I didn't have permission to be in there, I'd have no claim. Right. I'd have no right to any of it. Mm-hmm. So it's in your interest. Get permission. Just don't go on people's property.
Well,
there's something like 20,000 scheduled monuments in the UK, Mike. So if you can think about the amount of areas, therefore, that people can't go near to metal detect, and as Mike just said about nighthawkers, you've seen us produce some posts in the past about nighthawking, which is people going on sites that they're not allowed to, and that's the issue with scheduled monuments. That's why one of the reasons that they're scheduled is to keep treasure hunters, treasure seekers away. But this still goes on.
Yes, it does.
It's a bad thing for the subject in the UK. Unfortunately, it still goes on. But there are different policing units which have been created to deal with heritage crime.
Well, there was 3 fellas recently, as you know yourself, up in the Bridgend, Newport area, I believe, who they'd found treasure and not reported it, and they were selling it on eBay, and they were caught.
Oh.
And they received prison sentences, I believe.
Mm. Yeah. One of the questions I've got from Luke: steel washers, is that normal procedure for them to seed the ground with that? And secondly, will the washers not hinder recovery of other random lost finds in the future?
No. Well, yes, in that sense. But what they've done, they either use, steel washers, or they'll use brass nuts and bolts. nails, that sort of thing. But in something of this importance, the week that they were down in June, there was myself, there was John James Stoner, there was James Longman, there was Steve Lewis and Andrew Rolfe. We were all metal detecting the entire week on the rest of the field. So we're quite confident that there isn't anything significant in the rest of that field. So in the area where the find is, obviously it's in the interests. They know where it is with their GPS locks. I know where it is because I did the same. I took measurements from a hedge, measurements from another hedge, and so on. So I know exactly where it is. But for safety reasons, I think it's something that's got to be done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
Especially if the rest of the site has been looked at as much as it has.
Yeah.
We don't have the problem probably as bad as you guys do, but we do have issues. I know guys that they've been out metal detecting on property they have permission for, and then gone back and found where other holes were dug and stuff. And it is something you got to be careful about for sure. And but over there with the history, and boy, I would just I've actually seen some posts on night hawking before and stuff, and I actually spoke up in a group I was in, and so did a lot of other people. Somebody was talking about night hawking and why they felt justified doing it, and everybody spoke up and put an end to that real quick. So hopefully moving, there's always a bad egg. I don't care what you do, what you enjoy doing. There's somebody, but we just got to keep beating on them.
It can be really bad. I gained a new permission the year before last, and it was a potato field. And I phoned the farmer up and I said to him, when are you taking the potatoes out? And he gave me the date. So I left it 2 days after. That's all it was, 2 days. I went in there, and there must have been, it wasn't a very big field, but there must have been between 50 and 60 unfilled holes. Oh. Somebody had just gone in there quick, who didn't have permission. And unfortunately, when I contacted the farmer to say so, he just, well, that was it. I lost permission as well.
Yeah.
I do understand his frustration, but at the same time, it's a terrible thing when you think you have permission, or you have permission, and you go there and somebody's beating you to it.
Yeah, it's really, really upsetting, isn't it? When I lived in Ohio, there was up in the northeast part of the county I lived in, I kept getting turned down, and I met some of the nicest people, but they were tired of arrowhead hunters and people sneaking on their property to hunt, and even metal detecting. And I mean, it affected that whole area, and it shut a lot of us down because of a few bad apples. And I understand where the farmers are coming from. But these people that laugh and think it's funny that they've snuck into places, they're hurting themselves, other legitimate hunters. And, I've always said, hey, if I get turned down, I've got a million other places to go. It's okay. Exactly. You don't do that to the hobby, and farmers talk. I'm sure it's like that over there, but you get in small communities where the farmers talk and, hey, there's a bunch of holes in my field. I'll tell you what, it makes it hard to get in any farm field.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
it's a shame. It's definitely a shame.
I mean, some people, depending on where you live, it is a lot more difficult to get permission, and you find they've gone out and they've bought their metal detector. The best thing to do, the easiest advice to give somebody basically is make sure you've got permission before you buy a machine. And if you haven't got much permission, join a club.
Absolutely.
Or stick to the beaches for a while.
I mean, I was privy, one of the, I'm chairperson of Tempest Archaeology and Metal Detecting Group. And one of our members, Graham Withers, on a site near Crewe, we found a hoard of medieval coins, I think about 15, 16 of them. And he invited somebody who was a member of the same club as him along with him to the site to have a go and what have you. And he knew for a fact that this person had found an additional one of these coins. Now, we continue. Graham was out having a meal with his wife and he got a phone call from the farmer. Graham, are you metal detecting at night? He said, no, mate, I'm at so-and-so having a meal. Well, there's somebody metal detecting up here. I can see the lights going on in the field, etc., etc. Turns out it was said same person who had been with him as a friend. Therefore, they don't know if any additional coins were actually found. And when he reported it to the Portable Antiquities Scheme, the FLO for the area contacted the said person, who I would like to name and shame, but I can't because I'm quite polite. He denied any knowledge whatsoever of knowing Graham Withers, of being to the site and finding anything at all. Although everybody knows he did, he refused to accept that. And from what I've heard, said person, I know of something else that he'd done was completely out of order previous regarding a major hoard find. But said person, he's got a small museum in his house featuring multiple artifacts which haven't been through PAS and are quite dubious to how they've been found in the first place. So, yes, it goes on.
Have they gone through the... Well, obviously they haven't gone through the...
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there was people a couple of weeks ago that were selling finds on the internet. Luke actually knew one of them from different rallies and such like, and they were selling things which, again, may have been found in dubious circumstances, shall we say. So it's a terrible thing in the UK. Not a month goes by where there's an article not discussing night hawking in some capacity, and it's I can't understand. I can understand why people do it, but at the same time, I can't understand why people would do that to somebody else, land, etc., etc. And because of that, as well as Mike alluded to previously, there are so many farmers in the UK who won't allow metal detectorists onto their land because of the negative press from night hawking and such like.
Well, I'll give you an idea now as well. The beginning of last year, or the end of the year before, I can't remember now the exact dates. I approached a farmer locally. I asked him for permission to go on his fields, and he turned me down. And he said there's no Roman or Celtic history in this area. He said there's no point. You're wasting your time. So he wouldn't let me on his land. Now, bearing in mind, this is about a mile as a crow flies from where I found this Celtic Chariot. So I'm now in the process now of recontacting him. I'll show him the article in the magazine, and hopefully he'll change his mind.
Now, speaking of that, I think that's a good. I think now's a good time to bring this up. A question I had: can you share, if any good things, positive things that have come out of this, and is there any negative things that have come out of this find?
The positive side of it is the reckon it's completely changed the known history for the area, and it's going to rewrite the history books for the area. Which is what they're going to teach in the schools which my daughters go to.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, so I'm delighted to be part of that. Also, they're going to do projects with with the local people, involving them in different aspects of what they're going to do in the future. What you've got to keep in mind is it's going to take them 2 to 3 months for the chariot. There's another 2 burials in the field, and you've got the ramparts and the fort in the wooded area, and that's going to take 10 plus years more to do. Whether or not they develop it and turn it into another working village like Castle Henleth, I don't know. But there's a lot in the pipeline that they're sort of discussing and thinking about at the moment. So, anything's possible. To be honest, on the negative side, for me, it's just the length of time it's going to take. I want it out now.
Oh, I can imagine. That's got to be nerve-wracking.
I've just been doing a little bit of research while you were talking, looking at the distance between Milford Haven and Castle Henlith.
Yeah.
And it's about 28 miles. So as the crow flies, really, looking back at Celtic times, that's not really that far. So, and you've got 28 miles in between you and all the way around, where you've got potential of Celtic Iron Age life in general. So, given this find, I presume it's not far from Milford Haven. It's you've got a lot of potential there.
Well, I know for a fact with the research that I've been doing, some of the permissions that I've got now, I've only just gained. There's Celtic, Roman, Saxon, and Viking activity nearby, if not on. So watch this space. Hopefully, I'll be having a few more things to show.
And it would be nice to add more to the story of South Wales as well in that respect. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'd love to be kept abreast of that, obviously. And, if you do find anything and you would like to come on again in the future to continue the story, and we would appreciate you doing that as well.
Yeah. Well, as you know now with spring, it's going to take them 3 months to get that out.
Yeah.
2 to 3 months to get out the ground. Once that's out the ground, hopefully I won't sort of have too many disagreements with the archaeologists, if you know what I'm saying, but I'll be taking as many photos as I can for my own record, as well as, for any publications in the future. There's going to be substantially a lot more to talk about. What is it? But what I'm hoping is in the ground. I don't know. Obviously, it's just hope. Is that there's something in there with the name of, the person that's been buried.
Yeah. Going back to the artifacts, Mike.
Yeah.
It looks like on the image they are. Well, it says below, this bronze and enamel decoration would have been worn by a chariot's ponies. So the artifacts that you were found in, was there much coloration to all of them, or was it just a few?
All of them. All
right.
of them. The first piece that I found, as I said, was that the Celtic horse harness junction piece. On the back, you got 2 loops where the leather straps would have gone around the horse's breast, and that was in the middle of the breast. You got the tarot ring there, or tarot ring.
It's beautiful. I'm just looking at that as we speak.
I know. Well, that's a tobacco tin underneath, so that shows you how big it is.
Yeah. The
average size of a tarot ring is only 3 or 4 inches.
Right.
And that is 7.5, nearly 8 inches.
Wow.
And they reckon that's a central tarot ring from the chariot. There would have been another 4 to either side. They haven't been recovered yet. Also, the brooch. There should be 4 of them in total, 2 on either side of the horse, of the ponies, and there's 2 ponies, so there's another 3 of them there somewhere. Hopefully they're underneath the chariot, in that 3-metre mass of metal objects that's there.
3 meters, not small. It's a good 10 foot, isn't it? So
10 foot round in diameter.
What's going to be 10 foot round? All I can think of at the moment is a UFO, but
well, it's either
pretty big.
There was one up the line. You've probably read about it. There was one up the line where they found, and the chieftain died in a battle, and he was actually buried with all the weapons involved in that battle.
Oh wow!
So it's a potential that this could be weapons.
It could be weapons.
Wow.
It could be valuable. We don't know. Either way, I mean, even if it's weapons, historically the value is priceless. Just to actually be there and see, for me, a sword or a spear or a shield, anything like that, to see it, seeing the light of day for the first time in over 2,000 years, it's going to be mind blowing for me.
I'm looking at the tarot ring right now. I hope I said that right. What material is that made from? Do you know?
Bronze.
Yeah. I am amazed that it's still got paint on it. It's still got color.
It's not paint. It's a form of glass that the Romans and the Celts used.
Really?
Yeah. And the funny thing is about it as well, obviously when the Romans first came here, their weapons were superior to the Celts because they still had, wooden spears and all that sort of thing, bows and arrows. Whereas by the time the Celts were at force here. They were actually making better bronze swords than the Romans were.
Hmm.
Better metal then.
Yeah, those pieces are just stunning. That is stunning.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at other sites now, because obviously there's different images in different. I mean, I'm on one at the moment. What's the site? The Western Telegraph.
Yes.
And there's a marvelous picture. It's a big sort of like flower, and it's got all the intricate red pieces in it.
That's the horse harness junction piece.
Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely.
On the back of that, you've got 2 loops. That's basically the only way I could describe it when I first found it. I've had what you call heraldic horse harness pieces here in the past, which are early medieval. And because of the colour of it, I couldn't see the red enamel on it. It was covered in mud because it was really muddy, time of year. It wasn't until I got it home and I cleaned it up, with warm water and a toothbrush that the colours were coming through. But up until that point, I thought it was, early medieval. It wasn't until after I got the colours up and I sent some pictures to Julian Hart. He told me what it was.
More and more I look at these pictures. I'm on one at the moment, which I presume it looks like a normal ring, but it's obviously off the bridle itself.
That's it,
Every
yes.
single piece has got coloration in it. There's another piece that you've got in your hand, which has got blues in it as well. Like, absolutely stunning.
That's
I've never seen anything.
Sorry, about the little brooch there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I've never seen colours like this in metal detecting finds.
I know.
Personally, phenomenal.
I know. I couldn't believe it when I found it. That little brooch there was about 80, perhaps 90 meters away, in the same field. But because up until 10 years before it was a ploughed field, yourself, things get dragged along. So you don't know where about in the field that originated. We're assuming it originated where the actual chariot is. But there could be more there.
Oh.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had some nice Roman brooches, but they're not sure if it's Roman or if it's Celtic. They're not sure if it's part of the actual hoard or if it's separate. They're not sure yet.
I've just shared another one online on the Metal Mode UK podcast on Spreaker, the chat room there, where they've actually got the archaeological finds in their containers and such like.
Yes.
So you can see the size of the ring, you can see the chain link. You've got a better close up of the 2 wheels in the ground. The image itself of the fractured pieces put back together, it looks much more beautiful on this page, as does the Charriot ring. And that must be you. You've got as much hair as me.
Is that the picture of me squatting down by the wheels?
No, that's you standing on. I presume that's I don't know what bridge that is, but you got your Mine Lab bag on the side and
right, yes, that's
standing on some decking.
Yeah, that's my friend Steve Lewis's house.
Right.
He's actually in Special Branch. He's a police officer. And occasionally we metal detect together. But between Lewis, John Stoner, James Longman, and Andrew Rolfe, they all generously donate time to that week of the museum dig to help out. They just came down. They didn't have to. But they came down and volunteered to help. There's a sort standing together there. As well.
That's on the BBC site, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I got just a question I noticed. Are you holding a dais in the picture?
No. You're not about the picture of me standing there?
Yes, with the group of guys.
The BBC one where you're an enlisted fellow detectorist to help your centre.
Right.
I think it must be one of your friends who's got the machine.
Yeah, no, I haven't got a dais. The machine I was using at that time was a Fisher F75.
Yeah, no, I know, but it looks like you're holding a dais, no?
No.
Okay.
No, I'd like to, but unfortunately, until all this is settled, I can't afford one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
To be honest, Mike, this is fast becoming, looking at, I've only looked at 1 or 2 pages previously from obviously the information that the magazines put out, but this is fast becoming one of my favourite. Obviously, I've got an affinity to Pembrokeshire from going on holiday there every year when I was a kid, but knowing that this, I've been to Milford Haven, my auntie and uncle used to live in Haverfordwest.
Right.
To be in the area where potentially, this has been found it's phenomenal. Kudos to you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love history and archaeology has just always fascinated me. I'm with you, Dave. We definitely agree on that kind of stuff. I'll tell you, I couldn't be an archaeologist because of this. Simply, there's no way I could wait months before I started digging again. I just couldn't. I would never have the patience to use the brush and the little trowel and go that slow. It's amazing that they can do that. But yeah, I would. You have to come. We'll have to have you back on the show if you don't mind. As things each time it progresses, I want to keep track of this and get you back and hear more.
That would be great. Yes. Yeah.
Do you know, Mike, I was lucky enough back in the early 2000s to actually be a part of an archaeological group and actually take part in proper archaeology. And you know what? We all know, listening to the show, it's a metal detecting related podcast. We all know how therapeutic metal detecting is, but again, in a different area, lying on your belly, if the sun on your back, brushing little minute bits of soil and dust away from, bricks and such like in the ground. It's phenomenal. And it's an extension to metal detecting. The more you learn about archaeology, the more you learn about metal detecting and vice versa, I think.
Right.
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I have a huge respect for archaeology and find it fascinating, and it's just, I love history. That's what got me into this hobby, was just absolutely the history.
Same here. I love the history. On the same note, I mean, for me, as much as I love watching archaeologists, I couldn't actually be one. For me, the reason being is, I don't know if many people are aware of it, to become an archaeologist, you're not allowed to be a metal detectorist, and there's nothing that would make me give this up. I couldn't give it up. I've been doing it that long, and as you're saying, it's so therapeutic. Where else do you get the fresh air, the views that we get, the exercise you're having while you're doing it? That peace and quiet. It's just, I couldn't give that up to be an archaeologist. I couldn't do it.
How did you find the archaeologists when you were alongside them?
Very good, very good. They never, I don't think they truly believed that there was a chariot there. As I said, the first email I sent them saying I'd found a Celtic chieftain's chariot, and they wouldn't accept that, basically. They said, no way. And it wasn't until they started on the 20th of June, and it wasn't until 6 days later they got to the top of the wheels of the chariot. And it was with our assistance with the metal detectors as well. We'd show them as they were going down where there was metal objects and so on. And it wasn't until the 6th day that they actually got to the top of the wheels, and the look in their faces was priceless.
Hey guys, I feel horrible about this, and I apologize. We could go on forever, and I would like to have you back again. My leg is getting really sore being in the same position. I feel like I've kind of gotten to a point I've overdone it a little bit today. If it would be okay, let's end the show. And Mike, please keep in touch. We would love to have you back with any updates. If we haven't touched on enough yet, let's get you back for a part 2 before the archaeologists are back. But I feel like my leg's just getting too stiff and sore.
That's understandable. It's part of metal detecting, unfortunately.
Yeah. nasty little
I understand,
spider
Meg. You know exactly what my leg was like not long ago, so
Yes.
I can totally appreciate that.
bite. Yeah, I'm
Since I've
sitting
been
here.
metal detecting in the cold weather, I get sciatic nerve problem. My base of my back goes. It's all to do with metal detecting. We all do it. We all get those aches and pains, but
Right.
we just don't stop.
Yeah,
Right.
but Mike's not as old as me. I've just found out, so we'll leave the age thing there.
Yeah,
I'm the young one. Okay, guys. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Please keep in touch with both of us.
I will do.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks,
both.
Mike.
Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
Thank
Thank
you
you very much.
Thank you all for listening, and good night, everybody. Thank you so much, Mike.
Good night.
Take care, Mike. Good night.
Good night.